The stimulus versus austerity debate continues. One person who thinks we need more spending to boost the economy is Dean Baker. He is a former senior economist at the Economic Policy Institute, worked as a consultant for the World Bank and Joint Economic Committee of the U.S. Congress. He's written several books on the economy, including Taking Economics Seriously. He is now with the Center for Economic and Policy Research, joins us now from our bureau in D.C. Dean, glad to have you with us. You say there is a zero deficit problem in the short term. We need another $800 billion in stimulus. Some would say that money has been wasted in part, but you're calling for more stimulus over the next 2 years. The first question that comes to mind is, with what money?
Well, I don't see any problem with borrowing at this point, nor does the bond market. You just were talking a moment ago, we have 2.6% interest rates on our 10-year treasuries, the lowest they've been except for the worst of the crisis in 60 years. So there's no problem with borrowing. And this idea somehow this is some great burden on our children. Look to Japan. You could say lots of bad things about Japan, but one problem they don't have is a great debt burden. Their interest payments are less than 2% of GDP, even though their debt to GDP ratio is about 230%. That's because the central bank just holds it. There's no problem with that.
Dean, I do want to revisit what you just said about this idea of worrying about our kids. I actually worry about it. I mean, how long can we just kick the can down the road? I mean, in theory, you have to pay the piper sooner rather than later.
Well, a couple points. The best thing we could do for our kids is give their parents jobs. 9.5% unemployment, that's likely to go as high as 10 by the end of the year. I mean, it's going up, not down. That's a really serious problem for a lot of kids because their parents don't have jobs. Now, again, in terms of kicking it down the road, again, the Federal Reserve Board could just hold the debt, and there's really no reason not to do that. This idea somehow we have to worry about inflation, that's absurd. You don't get inflation when you have 10% unemployment.
But, I mean, what's the best way to create jobs then? I mean, what about this stimulus? You say that's the best road to grow. I know you've also been taking a look at some work-sharing programs like we've seen in Germany and the Netherlands as well, which essentially lets people work shorter hours to insulate the workforce. But that doesn't necessarily lead to job growth, does it? Or if it does, it's only temporary.
Well, no, it does lead to job growth. We have to keep in mind what goes on in the economy every month. We lose roughly 4 million jobs, half of those people leaving voluntarily, half involuntary. So if 2 million people leaving their jobs, either being fired or most often just dismissed because of lack of demand, if you could reduce that by just 10%, so you, instead of having 2 million people lose their job every month, you make it 200,000, that's basically the same thing as creating 200,000 jobs a month. So in this context of a dynamic economy with people always leaving their jobs, people getting jobs, if we could reduce the number that are leaving by 200,000 a month, that's a perhaps optimistic goal, but that would make a very big difference over the course of a year.
Dean, do you think it would be culturally accepted, though, to have a limited amount of hours per work week here in the U.S.?
Well, I know a lot of people would be very happy to be working 35 hours a week rather than 40, and of course many people here in Washington work much more than that. So, you know, you aren't forcing anyone to work a shorter work week. You're giving people that option. My guess is an awful lot of people would take it.
Now, can you improve anything just based on tax cuts, for example? Instead of spending $800 billion on stimulus, what about tax cuts, or what about cutting on public sector employees?
Well, those go in opposite directions. Cutting public sector employees is not going to employ anyone. But sure, you could have some tax cuts. I mean, stimulus, the President Obama's stimulus included a lot of tax cuts. If you have tax cuts oriented towards more moderate income people, middle income people who will spend that money, that makes sense. If we give Bill Gates a big tax cut, I mean, we have to be serious here. Bill Gates is not going to spend more money if we give him big tax cuts. So if we have some tax cuts oriented towards middle income people, moderate income people, that could be part of a stimulus package. No reason not to.